Hello and welcome to another edition of For the Record. I'm Sean Murphy. My guest today is a returning guest. Her name is Bonnie Stewart. She is Vice President of Government Affairs for the Connecticut's Business and Industry Association. We'll meet her again when we come back, so stay with us. Welcome back to For the Record. I'm Sean Murphy. My returning guest today is Bonnie Stewart. She is Vice President of Government Affairs for the Connecticut Business and Industry Association. First of all, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me again.
So let's give people a sort of a basic definition of what the Connecticut Business and Industry Association is, what it does, what it represents.
We are a business organization that advocates on behalf of businesses and helps them with their daily issues. We have around 10,000 members here in the state. And our issues range from, education, because you need to have a skilled workforce, to everything to taxes. I think that actually covers it alphabetically.
yeah, really, from almost A to Z right there.
Right.
Now, as we tape this, it wasn't that long ago that they had just gotten out of legislative session, right?
Right.
So let's talk about that a little bit. What's happened and what's new and exciting?
Well, a lot actually happened this legislative session. In Connecticut, we have what they call short sessions or long sessions. And this year we had a short session, meaning they ran from February to May, the beginning of May. But this year, a lot was covered in that short session because the governor made education a top priority. And that's great for the state as a whole. So he looked at our education system and said, their reforms more than 10 years ago and now are significantly more advanced educationally than our students are coming out of high school. So the governor said, let's do something about it, and they did.
How do you, the problem is though, and the governor is the guy who has to make the decisions, to balance whatever you want to make your priority, in this case education, with the budget, because that's always a balancing act, isn't it?
You're absolutely right. But one of the things that it's important to remember is that a program that might be the best program today may not be the best program 10 years from now. So you need to continuously look, like companies do, total quality management, total continuous improvement. You need to look at all your programs on a regular basis and see what's working. Is it meeting your goals? If it's not, modify it. If you can't modify it, eliminate it and put in something that can. And that's one of the things that the governor did this time around. They said, okay, we've got all these different requirements on the books. Let's see what should be there. Let's see what's not there. And let's see where our gaps are.
So you can make something like education a priority, and at the same time, even if budget cuts are necessary, you can still maybe shuffle things around so something less important can fall off, but something more important can have money allocated to it, so that you can actually really make education a priority and actually be able to pull through with it without, because you don't want it to lose funding or just have it fall by the wayside itself because you couldn't fund it.
Absolutely. And let's think about it. We all do this in our homes every day. You have to manage your financial budget, and sometimes you may decide to not put those flowers in out front that you wanted because you needed to fix a fence in the back or a window or something. We always are looking at what we'd like to do, and then what we can afford to do, and you prioritize.
Yeah, and so he's decided. How was it decided? Were other people encouraging him that education should be at the top of the list?
Absolutely. Among them, CBIA.
Right.
For the business community, having a skilled workforce is absolutely key. And unfortunately, here in Connecticut, we saw over the past 2 decades students that were coming out of school that were neither ready to enter the workforce nor higher education. And those are your 2 options.
Yeah.
You either go on to school or you get a job. And they weren't ready for either. And that was a problem. We had students graduating that didn't have the math and English skills they needed just to go into a regular job, whether it be retail, manufacturing. We didn't have people that had specific skills for specific jobs, for machining and other things. And then for the students in Connecticut that were attending Connecticut colleges, more than 25% had to take remedial classes.
Wow.
So basically you're paying for a college education,
Yeah.
and your first year of it are classes that are not even going to get you a college credit because they're remedial.
How would they have ended up getting accepted into college in the first place if they couldn't do the college coursework?
Well, unfortunately, a lot of the students that are now going on to college don't have that ground level of, ready for college. So a lot of the school, right, I mean, I met with one of the community college directors of admission the other day, and she told me she's finding that more and more students have been placing, when they come to take their placement test, in the remedial category. So they've actually increased the number of remedial classes, particularly at the community colleges and state universities.
Why is that happening? Why is this happening as far as us falling behind in Connecticut education-wise, especially compared to our other neighbor states? What's the reason for it?
That's a good question, and I can't give you an answer. I don't know the answer to that.
I don't think the governor even knows the answer to the question, right?
But I do know that we are really fortunate in Connecticut to have a commissioner, Stefan Pryor, who's one of the top education people in the country. And he helped put in a lot of schools like the Amistad Academy in New Haven, which have proven to be able to help children accelerate regardless of what their economic status is, and just done incredible things. I mean, I wish I had an opportunity like that for my children when they were going through school. So he went through with a number of other people, and they identified priorities. So they figured out, all right, these are our biggest problems. This is where we can get the biggest bang for our buck. And they felt that they could do a lot in terms of providing students with support they don't currently have, providing teachers with support they don't currently have. One of the things I found interesting coming from the private sector was that, we all go through evaluations every 6 months, every year. But a lot of teachers don't have those evaluations, or don't have evaluations where if they identify a problem, then they would give them the support to correct that problem and excel. So one of the things this new education package has done is help put in place effective evaluations that will help support teachers and bring them to a higher level. And the same thing with students. And if you want a system that succeeds, you're going to bring everyone up. And we really think that this will do that.
And it's not just a matter of throwing money at the problem?
No.
No?
No.
I mean, you got to get specific with,
Right. One of the things that the teachers' unions and the state education administrators have done is work together to identify a new evaluation system, so it's a meaningful one. You can meet with someone every 6 months and say, oh, that was great, you had 36 kids, and just talk about different things, but it's not going to be an evaluation that tells me where my strengths are, where my weaknesses are. So I keep on doing the good things and stop doing the poor things and work to make those better. But this new evaluation system is something that people feel very strongly about, because it will help identify, again, strengths as well as the problems, and move forward in the directions we should. That's good. It looks to schools where there are significant problems, so we call them turnaround schools. So it'll fix those broken schools. It puts in measures to allow that to happen. There's a variety of different things, and I think that's one of the reasons why this package really makes a big difference. They didn't just say, we're going to fix this one thing. They looked at it as a whole and said, okay, what are our problems, what are our priorities, and how can we address them?
As far as business and industry is concerned, it wasn't that much far back that you were on the show. So I guess really the economy in Connecticut hasn't changed that much, or has it? What's different from then to now as far as the effects on business and industry?
Right. What we're hearing right now in terms of the way our members are feeling about the economy is that it's a little bit better. There's a light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, I think we talked about that last time.
It's not turning around as fast as everyone would like, but I think that people are more hopeful than they were 6 months ago. I think that's the best way to put it. I think that we were real lucky this year up at the Capitol in the sense that we found positive movement forward in a couple of areas, such as education. But we still have significant challenges in our state, so we can't forget about those, and we need to work to address some of those problems.
As long as you're moving in the right direction, it may not be as quickly as everybody wants it, but at least you're not going backwards or standing still.
Makes everyone feel better.
Yeah, absolutely. So this time, now that a legislative session is out and we were off the air, we were kind of looking at your calendar and seeing when the next one was coming in. What happens between now and then for you?
Well, it's an election year.
Right.
So during the election year, it's very, very different.
Right.
And I'm just going to push the importance of everyone, one, registering to vote, and two, getting out and voting.
Right.
Because I always say you don't have the right to complain if you don't get to the polls, and one, find out something about the person you're going to vote for, or that you have the opportunity to vote for, and then do it. But we have a statewide election, and during that time it means it's a bit quieter for me in terms of the advocacy part, because people are busy running for re-election right now. So that means that we actually spend more time with our members during the off year, I'm going to call it. We actually go out and meet with our members, the businesses in Connecticut, to find out what they're working on, what their concerns are, what they feel is helping, what they feel is not helping. There's a lot of different projects that we get involved in through our education foundation. We're doing something right now to help move some people that have been part of the correction system onto meaningful jobs and education to help them get those jobs. Another hot topic right now is really, you know, the energy job field and what can be done out there, because we have a lot of people in Connecticut that are unemployed.
Right.
And so CBIA just worked with CREC, the Capital Regional Education Council, and Northeast Utilities to run an energy program to make people more aware of the different energy opportunities that were out there and give them some of the skills to get employed in those areas. So we have a lot of different projects that we work on during the off session that are extremely important to the state. When we do that, that gives us a better idea of the things we should be working on during the session as well.
Now, when you talk about members, how many members do you have, and how does one become a member?
CBIA has 10,000 members.
Wow.
We have quite a few. We're lucky. And with that, they range from one-person shops all the way up to our largest companies. The bulk of our members, I would say roughly 90%, have fewer than 50 employees, because that's where the bulk of the businesses are, right? Small businesses. One of the things that we realize, and our members do as well, is that the small businesses are dependent on the big businesses, and the big businesses are dependent on the smaller businesses.
Reliability and
right.
You didn't need each other, really, for a successful local economy.
Right. You know, the shops, the restaurants, they need the people there that are employed by the other companies. It makes a big difference. So we have all those different members, not only in terms of size, but also in terms of the types of businesses. We've got everything from retail shops to construction companies to manufacturing facilities. So we're very fortunate that we're a very diverse organization. And businesses become members by looking at our information, deciding that we're a place where they believe in either our mission or believe that we can help them through the services we provide, many of them free to our members, and then they, pay their dues dollars, and we're out there advocating for them the next day.
Let's take a break and come back, but let's have you give out the website for people to go and learn a little bit more about it.
Great.
And that is?
www.cbia.com.
All right. Bonnie Stewart, she's Vice President of Government Affairs for the Connecticut Business and Industry Association. We'll take a break and come back. I'm Sean Murphy. This is For the Record. Stay with us. Welcome back to For the Record. I'm Sean Murphy. My guest today, Bonnie Stewart, Vice President of Government Affairs for the Connecticut Business and Industry Association. We'll just keep right on going here. Another hot topic is the jobs bill. Let's talk about that a little bit.
That's an extremely important issue to a lot of people, but particularly small businesses. As you know, the bulk of businesses in any state, including Connecticut, are small businesses. Last year, the governor had pushed through a package with the help of the legislature and his Department of Economic and Community Development to encourage job growth and more innovation within the small business community. And it was a very successful program, but it only applied to companies, for the most part, that had 50 or fewer employees.
Which is the bulk of your membership.
The bulk of our membership, right. Yes, so we were very happy.
Yes.
But we have a decent amount between 50 and 100 as well, and they were all saying, hey, tough times, we'd love to do something too. Can you help us with training dollars or wage subsidies, et cetera, as well? And so the governor said, let's take those programs that are working great, like the Job Expansion Tax Credit or the Step Up program that help people that were either unemployed or veterans returning from active duty, and let's do something with them. And so they took the bill and expanded the measure so it applies to companies from 1 to 100 employees. So they actually doubled the size of the employers that were covered. That was an extremely important bill and something that a lot of companies have been able to utilize, and in return, a lot of people have been able to be employed, and that wouldn't have otherwise. So that was great news.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing, we don't have to touch too much on it, but related to jobs is the health care reform that is more of a federal issue and discussion more so than statewide, but at the same time it will affect businesses and people in Connecticut. And also the question comes up is do there need to be Connecticut mandates in any way for this? So that's got to be a topic of conversation depending on what happens in the presidential election coming up.
It's been a hot topic all summer, and you're right, it's a key issue in the presidential election. But I would say while most of the Capitol's been empty this summer in the legislative office building because of the elections, the one group that's meeting continuously is the Connecticut Health Exchange, which is the group, the state group that was required to be created as a result of the federal health care legislation. So that is a big issue, and you hit the nail right on the head. Their number one issue is what mandates should Connecticut have. We have more than almost every other state right now, which makes our health care more expensive. They're wondering, with the federal law, what the rules are going to be in 2 years. So should they reduce that number of mandated benefits, or should they, as everyone's always asking for more mandates to be put on, without realizing oftentimes that it actually ends up restricting access because you're driving up the cost. Well, this time they're wondering, if we're driving up that cost, who's going to pick it up? Is it the individual insured, as it has been so far, or their employer? Or is it going to be the state of Connecticut itself with budget issues? So healthcare is an absolutely hot topic.
Now, one thing that's confusing to me is if it's a federal thing with the healthcare reform, why would a state need to include mandates on it? Wouldn't you by default just defer to whatever the federal mandate is as far as the healthcare reform goes?
You could do that, and many states don't adopt any more mandates than the federal government has itself, because the federal government does have
I guess
mandated
based
benefits.
on the state, you might need to tweak things that are more specific to your area, maybe. I don't know.
You might, but it tends to do with the fact that Connecticut is a bit more willing to impose mandates on individuals, on employers, on municipalities. You hear the complaints on every level, much more so than most states are. We're the fourth in the country in terms of, we have the fourth most mandated benefits. So there's a couple states out there that beat us, but not many. But if you look at the number of mandates we impose on municipalities, that's higher as well than most other states. So I don't know that there's a need so much as an unwillingness to say no sometimes.
You know what? That's people, that
Right.
doing that. They work in the legislature too. So, we could just move on, maybe talk about the budget. I know taxes not this year, but next year, so people are going to be wondering about that. But also, whenever you use the word budget, or taxes for that matter, people's ears pop up because that's a hot button topic for them because it affects them.
Absolutely. 2 years ago, we had a huge tax package, $3.5 billion budget problem, huge taxes, some cuts, not many, and talk about trying to bring everything in line going forward. This year, concerns over an expected deficit, and so the governor and the secretary of the Office of Policy and Management, Ben Barnes, got together and came up with a package to trim some things because he's allowed to make cuts within a certain percentage of the budget. So they went through and did that. And then they decided to defer one of our payments on an economic recovery note, money we had borrowed in the past to cover the operating budget. So that's what they did this year to make sure that we didn't have a deficit this year. So the big question, as you pointed out, next year is going to be, where are we going to be at financially, and are they going to raise taxes again? And I would hope the answer is no, because everyone who paid their taxes and had to do all those retroactive payments at the end of the year really felt a squeeze, or when you didn't see the return that you expected, it was difficult for a lot of people. So we're hoping that this year the state continues to look at ways to become more effective, more efficient. If there's ways to trim the budget, go ahead and do that. What you and I had talked about earlier, looking at the different programs, we always believe in results-based accounting. Go through, make sure you're doing measurements of what you're doing. Are you meeting your goals? If you're not, modify your program or get rid of it. Make sure that you're not wasting our tax dollars. So that's going to be on everybody's minds. One of the things that you see being talked about in every election across the state is jobs and economy. And in order for employers to be willing to invest in our state, they have to have some type of confidence that the financial situation will be addressed.
And the tough thing about that is when you're talking about a politician running for re-election, if they don't get voted back in, then everything that they worked on, regardless of whether you were for it or against it, could get tossed out in something else. On the federal level, if it's the president's health care reform, so if another guy gets in, he may not like it. I know he doesn't like it, and they may toss that, and it'll be something different. If the governor, if he's got an idea for education, or an idea to balance the budget or taxes, his idea, if he doesn't get reelected when his term is up, then sometimes you have to start fresh and
you do, and you don't really know what people are going to do.
Yeah.
Because you're right. We've heard things come out of the Romney camp that he's got concerns regarding the federal bill. Well, he passed that bill in Massachusetts. He was the first one to pass a comprehensive health care reform.
Right. They
provide
really health care.
Right. Is he really going to repeal it? You just don't know. So that's one of the reasons why it's so important to get to know the people that you're planning.
Right.
Well, that you have an option to vote for.
Right.
You can't go by their campaign literature. Everyone
Right.
says jobs and the economy are the most important thing. You really need to speak to them. Go to one of the places where they have a debate. When they knock on your door, don't roll your eyes and say you're in the middle of dinner. Take
Right.
a few minutes, not an hour, but take a few minutes to talk to them, because these people are supposed to be representing you, whether it's the President of the United States or your local representative. And it's our responsibility as citizens of Connecticut to make sure that we're putting people in Hartford that are representing us and making the state move forward as opposed to moving back.
And that's why sometimes I've heard people, and I kind of agree with this, that maybe you should take the D or the R away from the end of their name, so that you're kind of obligated, you're forced to listen to their point of view. Yeah. That way you go in as an informed voter. And I don't care if you're a Democrat or a Republican
Right.
or whatever. I would prefer that you be an informed voter and know who you're voting for. And I would also add, and I think you would agree with this too, a lot of times people will not even bother with the municipal elections because they don't really know them or care, and they just go to the presidential ones. But the more local you vote in, the more power you have, because you're really affecting the outcome of election by voting in the municipal things. Don't you agree?
Absolutely. It is shocking to see how many people go in and just vote for president and then leave.
Yeah.
And you are absolutely right. The more you have more power if you're representing people
on your local level.
Yes, because the rules they make in Hartford, they have as much, if not more, of an impact on you as a citizen of our state than the federal laws do. Because the state has the ability, they've always got to comply with the federal, but they can go beyond it if
Right.
they want. So we need to make sure that if they're choosing to go beyond it, it's in a manner that's smart. It drives me nuts that people don't bother to, become an informed
So important.
voter, and two, that so many choose, even when they make the effort to get to the polls, not to vote for the entire
the guy they saw on
ticket.
TV.
Right.
That's who they vote for.
So you're absolutely right. I think the most powerful voter is an informed voter, and there's lots of places to become informed. CBIA actually has a campaign website now where you can go on and find out the biographical information about your legislator, what community service they've done before, where they went to school, what towns they represent, so you find out who else is in your district. But this year we've also asked all the legislators to tell us what their 3 top priorities are. And that's important. Some people have said they're getting more education funding from the states, and their top priority. Other people have said jobs. Somebody said the busway, but it lets you know more about the people that you're voting for. Take a look.
Right. Well, let's use that opportunity to mention the website again so people can go and learn more. What is it again?
www.cbia.com.
Bonnie Stewart, she's the Vice President of Government Affairs for the Connecticut Business and Industry Association. Thanks so much for coming back.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for joining us for another edition of For the Record. I'm Sean Murphy. We will see you next time. Take care.